You know, Crick Watson is a very good example. Crick Watson were in bad odor with their department, the Department of Molecular Biology. They couldn't get any research money and not even an office space. So they got an office space in the Cavendish Laboratory in physics. A very small office space, but it was a space. Allowed them to, you know, invent DNA or whatever they did. But I mean, I can't imagine another university where somebody who is frozen out of the biology department will get a toehold in the physics department. Can you imagine that? See, that's what, that kind of flexibility, it seems to me, is deeply built into Cambridge's institutional structure. And it's why, whatever I may say, you know, rubbish some aspects of its culture, I would emphasize this as something that we desperately need to hold on to. I mentioned that Cambridge played a very prominent role in the abolition movement. I mean, you know, abolition was, I mean, progressives in early 19th century Britain and Cambridge based their ideas on three linked notions. One of them was the need to abolish slavery. The second was evangelical Christianity coming out of Wesley. And the third was economic individualism. And most of the practitioners, the leading lights, I mean, made some sort of combination of these three things. I mean, the Darwins and the Wedgwoods, the big Cambridge families, used to boycott West Indian sugar because of slavery, and they would start their meals by offering a prayer for the slaves. This was, you know, this was big stuff, and it turned out that, I mean, I've written a lecture, I published on my website a lecture that I gave here 12 years ago, 13 years ago, something like that, called Clarkson, Cambridge and the International Movement for Human Rights, in which I established that almost everything that we think about Cambridge is refuted by the history of this movement around 1800. The leading practitioners of the abolition movement in this country were from Cambridge. Thomas Clarkson and William Wilberforce were both from this college. So was William Wordsworth, who wrote a poem praising Toussaint Louverture, the leader of the slave revolution in Haiti. The people who supported this movement cut across town and gown divisions. They were nonconformist preachers, they were high Tory churchmen, master of queens. There was a guy called Benjamin Flower who produced the Cambridge Intelligencer, which was the most radical magazine in Britain around 1800. And he advocated abolition by means of revolution. And this was at a time when Britain was fighting Napoleon, you know, in the name of anti-revolution. I mean, this was dangerous stuff. And I've described it at greater length if you want to follow it up in that piece on Clarkson. The Vice-Chancellor, Peter Peckard, Master of Magdalen, produced what was taken to be the most revolutionary sermon in Cambridge since the Reformation, in that small church near the Market Square, St. Edward's. And he produced a slogan for his sermon, "Am I not a man and a brother?" which Josiah Wedgwood then turned into a best-selling plaque or medal or whatever. This is quite extraordinary, but what is most extraordinary of all is that the eminence grise of this movement was William Pitt, the Tory Prime Minister, who was Cambridge's MP, who was only 23 or something like that when he was Prime Minister. And he could not be directly involved in the abolition movement because he's a Tory, but William Wilberforce was his best friend and he set him up to do that. And the mayor of Cambridge, who lived in the house that is now Barclays Bank in Bennett Street, Mortlock, was also, he was the placeman of the Duke of Northumberland. All of these people were involved in an extraordinary attempt to shift the balance of Britain's economic interest from the Caribbean, from slave-based sugar, east to India and northeast to the Baltic. So this is a period that is almost unknown, but it also speaks of a Cambridge which is very hard for us to recognize in terms of conventional descriptions of the place. What else did Cambridge contribute to development in the 19th century? The main contribution, and some people can sneer at this, but I don't, was evangelical mission activity. Cambridge was a hotbed for evangelical Christianity and mission activity. There was a young scholar from St. John's called Henry Martin, who not only was a leading light of this movement, but he was a pioneer in the organization of Indian languages as objects of study. I could say some more about this, but I'm running out of time. But the fact is that you should look very carefully at these 19th century Christians who came out of Cambridge and did what they did, often against a lot of imperialist contradiction in the places that they operated. And I think that these people have a lot that may be similar with you. That's one of the things I think, is that if we could get out of just rubbishing the fact that they were evangelical Christians, we might see that what motivated them and the social consequences of their work was a major contribution to development in the context of Western imperialist expansion in the 19th century. But really, I mean, what Cambridge contributed in the 19th century was science, as I've already indicated. Cambridge, I mean, in case you've forgotten, or in case it's become obscure, it's a science university. And that's the big difference from Oxford. I mean, most of the people who count in this university are doing natural science of one kind or another. And the 19th century was a period when Cambridge, as I've said, I mean, produced revolutionary changes in biological and physical science, which continued into the first half and even later in the 20th century, the atom and DNA and so on. And let us not forget that Cambridge also produced the greatest economist of the 20th century, John Maynard Keynes. Probably, in my mind, the only defensible economist of the 20th century. And certainly someone from whom we still have a lot to learn. I mean, he was amazing. He also ran the Arts Theatre as a sideline and was bursar at King's, made them rich. They were poor before he took them over. So I mean, I don't want to get carried away with emphasizing only what it is that people from Cambridge did, as it were, in the rest of the world, such as the missionaries, or through working for abolition. This was very important, but it's worth remembering that inventing modern physics had a major effect on global development in the 20th century. Okay, and I guess that leads me as a bridge to my final section, to the question of what Cambridge is like now. Now, I mean, Kate was really smart. Well, I knew she was smart already, but she basically said, look here, son, when you left here 12 years ago, so don't tell us what this place now is, because it's changed a lot, which I'm sure it has. But I believe that what we're faced with at the moment is a situation in which the syllabus is basically antiquated. It's too specialized and divided, and it's very hard to adapt it to the needs of thinking big about questions of development. I mean, Cambridge has played a minor role, as you know, in training colonial administrators and development administrators, but it really is a minor role compared with all the other things that have been going on.